Ever get the, like, little shiver? And when you're
Yeah.
asking ChatGPT something, and it's, it's almost like it's reading your mind. That
Yeah.
feeling of, whoa, how did it know that?
Yeah. It's it is a fascinating time to be alive, right? I
Mhm.
mean, with these large language models, LLMs all around us,
It's everywhere you turn around.
exactly, churning out this human quality text like it's nothing.
And that's kind of what's so interesting about this deep dive, right? We're not just talking about how these things work,
Right.
but how we even begin to wrap our heads around them. And we've got this paper, Borges and AI,
Mm.
and they're saying we need a whole new framework, a new lens.
Yeah.
And they think we should borrow it from, get this, literature.
Okay.
Jorge Luis Borges, to be exact. The
Interesting.
mind-bendy stuff.
The authors, Leon Boutou and Bernhard Scholkoff, they start with this feeling I think a lot of us have, that sci-fi anxiety
Oh, yeah.
about AI, right?
Right.
Like we're so stuck on these images of robots and the Terminator and all that,
Right, right.
that we miss this crucial insight. These LLMs, they're not sentient beings.
Okay.
They're storytellers.
Storytellers. Okay, I'll buy it. You mean because they're essentially what? Predicting what words come next, creating that narrative flow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the paper, it makes this really cool link between LLMs and this Borges story, The Garden of Forking Paths. It's like every time an LLM generates text, it's going down one path in this infinite garden, always branching with every single word.
So instead of this, like, all-knowing AI, we've got an AI that's more like, I don't know, a master improviser, spinning yarns based on all the data it's gobbled up.
Yeah, like that.
But then, doesn't that make the information they give us, well, kind of fictional?
See, that's where it gets really interesting.
Mhm.
The paper goes as far as to say, a perfect language model, this is a quote, randomly selects continuations from an infinite collection of plausible texts.
Okay.
So they're not going for truth, as we'd think of it, but narrative plausibility, making it sound good, making sense in the story.
So when I ask an LLM something, anything, it's less about the right answer, more about telling me a convincing story. I mean, I get it, but kind of creepy, no.
That's exactly their point. They call those little hallucinations that LLMs spit out sometimes, they call them confabulations,
Yeah.
like plausible inventions, just to keep the story going, even if it's not real, not like malicious, but
But shows how easy it is to get tricked, even when it sounds totally legit. So how do we, I don't know, how do we even tell what's what anymore? Real versus confabulated, when these things are getting better at storytelling by the minute? And what happens when we start preferring the better stories, even if they're not true?
see, those are the questions. And this is where looking at it through Borges, it really helps. And there's this other story, the Library of Babel, that one.
Yeah.
That one's where things get really wild.
All right, so we're back, and LLMs, they're like these, what'd you call them, master storytellers, spinning yarns from all the data they've, like, absorbed.
Yeah, and like good storytellers, they can really pull you in, even when
Yeah.
they get a little loose with the facts.
Which is where, I guess, Borges's Library of Babel comes in. An infinite library, every book ever. How does that connect to all this?
Okay, so picture yourself, right, in this library. Books everywhere, forever. Each one, it's like a potential path, a whole different reality. Kind of overwhelming, isn't it?
Overwhelming try. I don't know, the internet these days. Start with a simple question. Next thing you know, you're drowning in search results. Conflicting info, clickbait, ads. Makes your head spin.
Exactly. And that feeling, that lost in the data feeling. Borges nails it in the Library of Babel. There's this line that says, the library is a sphere whose exact center is any hexagon and whose circumference is unattainable.
So basically, we're all just stumbling around in this giant unknowable mess of info, hoping we bump into something meaningful, humbling to say the least.
It is, right, and it gets at this very human thing. The paper calls it our desire for vindication. Even with all this data, we still want that one piece, that one story, the one that proves what we already believe or what we're scared of.
So like asking an LLM, will I be successful? I'm not really after the objective truth. More like a story that says, yeah, you'll be fine, or, the opposite. Little unsettling, but kind of tracks. We love a good pattern, a narrative, even if it's not, like, true.
Exactly. And the danger is, and the authors make this point, that by looking for this vindication, we might actually be shaping the LLMs, making them tell us what we want to hear, even if it's not the full picture.
Whoa, so it's like we want certain stories, and
Yeah.
that makes the LLMs tell those stories more, which makes us believe them even more. Some kind of feedback loop. Who's really in control,
And that is the question. And this leads us to another wide part of the Library of Babel, these guys called the Purifiers.
Purifiers. Okay, who are they?
So In the story, all right, the
Mhm.
Purifiers, they think they can fix the library by destroying books they don't like, the
Mm.
worthless ones, the heretical ones. It's that very human urge to control information, to make it fit our idea of order.
So in our world, that's like censorship, trying to make the LLM say only acceptable stuff.
Kinda, yeah. And the paper gives a really good example. Say you're prompting an LLM, you want it to help someone stay away from illegal drugs. You'd think you'd just give some generic obey the law stuff, right?
Yeah, you don't want it giving out bad advice, enabling stuff.
Right. But they then show how easy that is to get around. Change the prompt just a little. Say it's for a story you're writing, a crime novel or something. Suddenly, the LLM's got no problem describing those substances, how to use them, the whole 9 yards.
Wow. So even with good intentions, trying to police these things, it's like whack-a-mole, right? Block one thing, another pops up.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, can we really align these LLMs with, like, human values
Mm.
without also kind of limiting what we're allowed to think? Tough question.
So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground. LLMs as storytellers, that whole fire hose of info they represent, and even how tricky it is to, like, control what they say.
Yeah, and we've been using Borges this whole time to kind of make sense of it.
Which, I gotta say, leads to a pretty wild question. If these LLMs are always cooking up stories, right, exploring all those forking paths, does that mess with how we think about our own stories, our human lives?
That's where this paper gets really deep. It links those forking paths to how we experience time itself. Every choice we make, it's like another branch in our own story.
Like the, what if I'd done things differently? Go back, change one decision. Would I even be the same person? It's a lot, right?
Exactly. And the paper's saying LLMs, in a way, they're always doing that, exploring all those what ifs. They're not stuck on this linear timeline the way we are.
So it's not just that they tell stories. It's like they're showing us how we make sense of things, how we deal with choices, with all the possibilities, just by the way they operate.
Yeah. And it can be kind of exciting, but also maybe a little scary. Makes you realize our own story, who we think we are, it's just one tiny thread in like an infinite tapestry.
It makes you wonder, being around these LLMs so much, does it change us? Do we start seeing our own lives as less fixed, more open-ended, maybe?
Fascinating, isn't it? And honestly, I think the paper would say it's too soon to know for sure. But one thing's for sure, these LLMs, they're powerful, man, for looking at stories, at language, at what it even means to be human.
So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway for everyone listening, for anyone trying to figure out this whole AI thing?
I like that the paper doesn't give easy answers. It's more like, hey, approach this with wonder, yeah, but also keep a critical eye.
Don't forget, LLMs, they're tools. Amazing, powerful tools, but still tools. It's on us to use them right, ethically, and not just blindly accept everything they spit out.
And maybe most importantly, never forget the power of our own stories, our own voices, especially in a world that's getting more complex and tech-driven by the minute. Like Borges said, and I'm paraphrasing here, the universe is this endless library. So let's keep exploring it, but on our own terms, with our eyes open, our minds engaged.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this whole Borges and AI connection? Does it change how you see things? Let us know. And until next time, happy exploring, everyone.